Aside from ROM hacks and creepypastas about video games, I've always been extremely fascinated by mysterious websites. The ones that scare me the most are usually the ones that aren't overtly creepy, but rather are just very weird and obtuse. The kind of thing you look at and wonder, why does this exist? Who made this and what's it for? Today, I'm going to talk about two such websites. In early 2006, a website called Eon8.com appeared, and started being linked and spread around forums all over the earlier internet. When you visited the domain, you would be greeted with a timer counting down to July 1st. As for what that timer was for, no explanation was offered. The site itself didn't provide any additional context at all, other than some weird graphics on the homepage. Various codes and phrases were also there, along with links to a subdomain of the site that just led to password entries. The site would also occasionally have updates added to the bottom of the page, usually saying cryptic things about project reassignments and things being deployed or being made active. Part of the site's spread also came from the fact that a user called X21B registered on certain forums and posted cryptic things about the site and other codes. This person's username mirrored one of the links on the site, which mentioned a Project X21B. Because of the lack of information, visitors were free to draw all sorts of conclusions from the creepy site. It's counting down to the end of the world, or a nuclear disaster. Some sort of virus will be released into the public that day, or maybe some shadow government will unveil its plan to take over the world. Some people even thought it was a viral marketing campaign for a TV show or a video game or something. Maybe Lost, which was in its second season at the time and was prominently featuring a plotline about a mysterious computer countdown. Some people also speculated on the name of the site, Eon8, believing that there is some significance to the 8th Eon being a reference to some apocalypse. Still, others believed that the 8 in the URL was actually referring to other websites out there that may have been similarly named, but with different numbers. And after people did some experimentation, another eerie website was discovered. Eon5.com. Eon5 ended up creeping out a lot of people, even more than Eon8, which is ironic because it's fundamentally a much simpler website. There are no timers or codes, no text or fancy graphics, just a single photo of, well, take a look on your own and draw your own conclusion. On first glance, it kind of resembles some sort of hallway, but the shape of the passage is kind of off, with these partitions on the sides. To me, it actually looks more like a mechanical thing, such as an elevator shaft or a maintenance tunnel. But whatever this is feels, to me at least, kind of small. The dust particles seem a little too big for this to be something human-sized. Maybe it's an air duct? Or the inside of some kind of metallic pipe or table leg or something? The site contained no other information aside from a 5 as the site's icon. Even viewing the site source doesn't reveal anything else. Despite that, people came to the conclusion that this site may be related to Eon8. Meanwhile, as the timer on Eon8 drew closer to 0, more and more people were sharing the site and freaking out over what it was. Some people also became worried about the fact that the hosting service used by the site seemed to also host websites with weird allusions to terrorism. I should mention that since all this happened long before YouTube was big, most of the spread was through my favorite website on the internet, YTMND. The day before 0, a new message appeared in yellow text on the site saying, "Project status, X13600 imminent," leading to an explosion in activity on forum threads all over the internet. Even people who were laughing at everyone else for being afraid still seemed curious to tune in and find out what the answer really was. People talked about having Eon8 watch parties, meeting up in groups to watch the timer tick down, either in person or through old online call services like Skype or Ventrilo. And so, the final countdown began. After, the site went down for a moment, possibly due to the traffic it was getting, and when it came back up, the big red text, Eon8 deployed, appeared, with a link underneath promising to reveal the truth. Clicking on the link showed you all the answers. And let's be honest, considering the fact that we're all still on this planet right now, you can probably guess where this is going. Turns out, the world wasn't ending, and no viruses were unleashed. Unless it was like 14 years too early. The link simply led to a Q&A with the site's creator, who explained the purpose of the site. The purpose of this project was to determine the reactions of the internet public to lack of information. He goes on to reveal his identity as Mike, a 23-year-old web designer from Florida. He said that he made the entire project himself, but cheekily refers to himself as "we" throughout the FAQ. He explains the results of the experiment as follows. We were amazed to discover that the site was instantly linked with terrorism simply for the fact that it seemed mysterious. Evil was the #1 first impression people had of the site, in spite of the fact that there are no threats on the site. The only thing Eon8 says is, "We don't want you here." Nothing else. Other, less disappointing opinions were social experimentation, which was correct, James Bond movie viral marketing, and promotions for video games. For many people, being faced with a countdown timer was an instant reason to try and shut down or hack the site. This is a worrying reaction, that if someone doesn't understand something, they must destroy it. As a result, the servers have been hit quite hard these past few days, but luckily, 99% of the hackers could easily be described as lame noobs. Another worrying example of paranoia was how quickly people would jump to conclusions, such as telephoning the registered owner of a dog seen in a photograph on a server that hosts a page that links to Eon8. In regards to the name of the site, this is what he had to say about that. The domain Eon8.com was chosen, as it is short, easily remembered, and Eon9 was already registered. In response to people asking about it being connected to the end of the world, we picked Eon8 because Eon9 was already taken. We didn't know about the significance of this. Eon is a cool sounding word. When asked about the Eon5 website, nothing to do with us. Pure coincidence, but worked in our favor. And when asked about the terrorism claims, Eon8 is hosted in the Planet Data Center in Texas. When you look up the address of their headquarters, you can find it listed on other sites that are also in the same data center. Eon8 has nothing to do with anything else hosted by the Planet, which also hosts some terrorist sites apparently. That's nothing to do with me. If you believe there is a site with real terrorists on it, please contact the Planet and get them to investigate. I'll include a link to the full FAQ in the description, but he goes on to address various other aspects of the site, including the passwords, the codes, the graphics, and even the end date, but in a nutshell, there wasn't really a deeper meaning behind any of the other clues. He concluded the write-up with, "People take things too seriously and panic over the most trivial things, but at the same time, there are many people out there who think things through without jumping to conclusions. You can't let pointless speculation rule your lives and force you to live in fear. This was followed up by one final message from Eon8, which linked to an MP3 file of "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life" from Monty Python. He signs off as X21B, or LS224. I did some digging around in hopes that I could contact him for perhaps an interview, but I couldn't find any other instances online of anyone using either of those names, unfortunately. He later made an update to the site to say that he fixed the damage done by attackers and that he appreciated how much fun people had with the site overall. He also linked to some other sites that talked about Eon8, including a fan-made merchandise site and, thankfully, YTMND. Of course, not everyone was pleased with this conclusion, and some people even seemed like they hoped something terrible would happen. But in the end, it looks like all is well, and the internet is safe once again. Well, except for one thing. There's still one mystery that was never solved. What was Eon5 all about? That still wasn't really determined. And for the next few years, threads would occasionally appear from people asking about it, before it died down and the site became more or less forgotten, apart from its occasional appearances on creepy websites' iceberg charts. Additionally, at some point, the site itself disappeared, and the URL now points to some kind of record label. What was it all about? What was being shown in that photo? As I mentioned before, Eon5.com currently doesn't look like that, so I'll need to take to the Wayback Machine to view it. Yep, that's a website. Viewing the page source doesn't turn up anything interesting. The page is just nothing but this photo, with no links to any other pages on the site. But I have a trick up my sleeve, one that I don't see other people bring up very often. If you add an asterisk to the end of a Wayback URL, it shows you a list of all links saved under that directory, meaning that if there are any other pages on the site that were saved, we can see them. Scrolling through the list, I did find one thing of interest. Eon5 hosting services? I guess that could mean that the Eon5 company is something that can host other sites, but it's still vague. Does it mean that Eon5 would host other websites for you on a new domain? Or does it mean that the eon5.com domain itself was rentable? I'm actually pretty curious as to how this image file even got saved. Wayback Machine only saves pages if the site's bots found the page, but that requires the page to be linked publicly somewhere. Wayback can also save pages if someone manually tells the site to save a link, but if that link wasn't public to begin with, then this could only have been done by someone with access to those pages. Weird. Let's back up a bit. Wayback can also show us older and newer snapshots, so let's look at the oldest version of the page from 2001. Eon5 skin treatment? Well, this looks totally different. A skincare company? Is it some kind of ARG? Is this company real? Or is it some kind of grand conspiracy, hoping to use this metal apparatus to start the real Doomsday Timer and take over the world? Actually, no, this seems pretty legitimate. They're based in Chicago, and they're actually still active today under a different domain. Whoops. But still though, I want to really test this out. Let's see if I can buy something from them. Let's see. I could use some exfoliator. My face has been kind of messed up lately. Alright. There was an error processing your order. Okay, this isn't a joke. I actually spent like 15 minutes troubleshooting this and couldn't get it working. I even went out and just bought something from 7-Eleven to make sure it wasn't like just an issue with my card, but everything seems to be working. It's just something up with their site just doesn't want me to give them money. I had like a bit plan. I wanted a bottle of Eon5 exfoliant for the video, but now I just want to buy one out of spite. Okay, in all seriousness, this company seems completely unrelated. I think they just changed domains, and another company scooped it up later. But what kind of company would want to use the name? Well, now let's try going forward in time. I mentioned that the URL is now occupied by a record label of some sort, but let's see when exactly that happened. Inching through the Wayback search results, it looked like the site changed sometime in early 12, when the site suddenly changed to a bunch of advertisements for the music company and a giant 5. Wait a minute. That 5 is in the site's icon, and is the same one that was on the site when it was just the weird image. So they were the same site after all? Yup. It turns out, if you look through the discography of Eon5's parent company, Cult Records, they released a single in 2001 that used an edited version of that image as the cover. According to Wayback, the site showed the mystery photo from 2006 to 2012. Are you seriously telling me that this small music company was just paying for this site as a placeholder for almost 6 years? I mean, yeah, I guess that's the explanation. I just find it funny that a strange image plaguing my brain once again turns out to be related to music promotion. If I had a nickel for every time that happened, I would have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. So it looks like the website was just a placeholder for this music label, and because it was up for an unnecessarily long time, it was long enough for people to get spooked by it, helped by the fact that it was at the same time that Eon8 was going on. It makes sense, but it's kind of a disappointing answer. And I don't like disappointing answers, so instead I'm going to fixate on a question that's less important, but is still bothering me nonetheless. What actually is in the photo? Well, Google Images sort of has an answer. If you reverse search the photo, not much comes up, but one of the few things that does appear is a result from freeimages.com, with the photo titled Photochemical Tablet Cassette, with the description, all the cool stuff you can find in a photo lab, smiley face. Okay, that sounds like a pretty promising answer. I don't know what a photochemical tablet cassette is, though, so I'm still pretty confused about what the photo is of, but let's Google it to learn more. Okay, so apparently Googling the phrase photochemical tablet cassette turns up literally nothing on the internet except for that post. Alright, to be fair, I don't really know what any of these words mean, so maybe the person who posted it to Free Images just phrased it in an obscure or very specific way. Let's try Googling some variations of the phrase. Tablet cassette, photochemical cassette, photochemical tablet, photo lab. Okay, so searching these more general phrases does give me many more results, but none of them look relevant at all. I keep getting what look like photos of ordinary cassette tapes. Maybe this is a photo of the inside of one, but I don't know if that's possible. To be honest, I think this lead is kind of a bust, not just because it makes no sense, but also because this photo was posted onto Free Images sometime in or after 2020, long after the Eon5 Mystery first started. So, is it even possible for this to be the inside of a cassette tape? Let's take another, closer look. I actually asked a lot of people I know in real life for thoughts, and even made a Facebook post about it. Most people agree that, at first glance, it looks like something that could be an elevator shaft or a subway tunnel, but neither of those explanations really hold up to scrutiny. Looking at photos of those things online, I can't find any photos of tunnels that have those weird, track-like partitions, and I won't be convinced until I can find at least one example of one that does. Plus, if you look at the bottom of the photo, you can see what looks like dust particles gathered around. Comparing these to the scale of the rest of the photo, I think this has to be something fairly small. The dust looks too big for this to be a subway tunnel, and the light, which I'm guessing is from a camera flash, covers too much of the area as well. For other reasons, I don't think this can be an elevator shaft anyway. If you look at the photo, the dust is near the bottom of the photo, indicating that the gravity does in fact point down. So unless it's a sideways moving elevator tunnel, I don't think it can be any kind of upright shaft. Others have suggested that maybe it's something where the photo has been mirrored. There is a weird white line running down the middle of the photo, and it's very out of place, so I can see why people get that impression. But I don't think that's right either. Look at the walls on either side of the photo. The patterns of the smudges don't match up very well. Besides, the entire photo has this diagonal tilt to it, which I think would be hard to perfectly line up anyway. Some people have suggested that it could be something really tiny, like a stapler, but this doesn't seem plausible either. If it was that small, you'd think that the light would reach even deeper into the tunnel than this. Also, I got so caught up in trying to figure out what this photo is of that I asked one of my professors, who is an expert at all things mechanical engineering, to take a look at the photo and give me his thoughts. He pointed out something that I hadn't noticed or thought about. If you look at the edges of the partitions, there are these slight lines, which kind of look like some metal was bent and fitted over something else. If that's the case, then according to my professor, it would need to be something quite a bit bigger than a stapler. I actually became so obsessed with trying to figure out what this is a photo of that I ended up asking random people all over my college campus if they had any idea what it was, and I even offered a cash prize to anyone who could convince me of what it is. No one had any idea. Me sad. I sent an email to Eon5 themselves and asked about the artwork a few weeks ago, but I haven't heard back. And unfortunately, that's kind of where the trail ends. But I am not going to let it end there. I am determined to know what this is a photo of, and mark my words, I will figure it out. But I think I'm going to need the help of you guys. I'm going to pull a Mudahar and put a bounty on this information. The first person to comment or message me and explain what this is a photo of will receive $10. What? I'm not rich. Fine, $15. You'll win this money if you explain what the image is, or at least could most plausibly be a picture of. The key thing there is that you have to convince me. For example, maybe it really is a photochemical cell or whatever, but you can't just comment and say that. You'd also have to maybe show me a picture of a similar shaft with the same looking tracks and everything. Or at least explain what's happening in the photo and what I would have to look up to find other photos of the same kind of thing. My goal with this YouTube channel is to leave no stone unturned, and I won't rest until every mystery on the internet has been solved, no matter how small, but this is something that I need your help with. Do some digging on the photo for a chance to win some smackaroonies, or comment if you just have a request for what you want me to investigate next time. That's all for now. Subscribe if you want to see where this challenge goes, and I hope you all have a lovely night. Bye-bye.